Imagine if you were playing Dark Souls or Diablo 2 or World of Warcraft, but you never got any experience, you never got any gold, and the mobs don't even drop any loot. Would you continue playing that game? Of course you wouldn't, because there's no incentive. The loot is the point. Getting stronger and richer and getting better items and just constantly improving as you grind through the game. That's the whole point. The gameplay itself might be fun up to a certain point, but if there's no reward for playing the game, then nobody's going to want to keep playing the game. Now, imagine if you busted your ass for years, working hard, doing the best you possibly could, working for some company, and then after, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, when you adjust your current salary for inflation, you're not even making any more than you were when you first started. And on top of that, women still think you're a broke loser, just like they thought you were a broke loser before you even got the job. Oh, what's that? You don't have to imagine? That's actually how your real life is actually going right now? Oh, damn. That sucks. But you're not alone. That is the situation I find myself in. That's the situation a lot of men find themselves in these days. Probably most men, if I had to guess. There's just no incentive anymore. Everything is rigged against us as men. We're literally expected to grind for no loot. No loot. And I think most guys would be fine with that if we didn't also have to be maidenless. Back in the day, if a man worked hard and tried his best, chances were pretty good that he would be able to get married and have kids and, just have a life worth living. He could actually have something worth fighting for, something to keep him going. Think about it. What did every soldier fighting in the trenches keep in their pocket? Was it money? Was it jewelry? No, it was a picture of their sweetheart, a picture of their kids, or maybe a handwritten letter from someone back home. Those familial relationships are everything to a man. Everything. And a woman, a good, faithful woman, is everything to a man because she represents life. She is comfort. She is not only family herself, but she's the source of family. A good woman is the backbone of the family unit. She supports her man, she takes care of the kids. That's everything. That is what men fight for. That is what men are willing to die for. That's the reason, historically, men were willing to work 16 hours a day in the frickin' coal mines, subjecting themselves to unspeakable conditions. All the money in the world means nothing without that. Money is just a means to an end. But that's not attainable for most men these days. A good woman. Even a lousy, no good thought isn't attainable for most men these days. That's how bad it is. That's how little incentive men have to work these days. And sure, if you had to be chronically single, then yeah, you could at least make things a little bit better for yourself just by having enough money to cover your bills and afford a few luxuries. Enough money where you could take care of any emergencies that pop up. If you have any health issues, you wouldn't have to worry about whether or not you can afford the treatment. Things like that. Obviously, having enough money to be comfortable, not even thriving, but just enough to be comfortable, that goes a long way. Even if it seems like every woman in the world finds you repulsive. But most jobs do not pay very well these days. It just keeps getting harder and harder to even get a job in the first place. At this point, if you don't already have 5 or more years of experience in most jobs, good luck getting hired. Yeah, you can lie on your resume. You kind of have to at this point. But the odds are still stacked against you. Because frankly, women don't face the same barriers to entry that men face in this modern corporate hellscape. They just don't. Okay? These big corporations are bending over backwards to hire young women. And that's part of the problem because typically, most women do not want to date any man that makes less money than they do. So, in a society where the average woman has an easier time finding work compared to the average man, just statistically speaking, it just stands to reason that most men are not going to be attractive to most women. So, being on the grind, working as hard as you possibly can, that's not enough to guarantee you a good rate of pay. That is not enough to guarantee you the ability to start a family or even just the ability to get laid like one time. So tell me, how does it make any sense for a man in this society to keep busting his ass to contribute to a system where he gets absolutely nothing in return for it? Nothing. How does that make any sense? But people still want to shame you when you say, hey, wait a minute, I'm getting screwed here. I quit. People want to shame you for walking away, as if you're a bad person for not wanting to sacrifice yourself to corporate America for the reward of literally nothing. I mean, I guess the only reward is that people won't insult you for being a quote unquote bum, but that's not even relevant really, because if it's not that, then it'll just be something else. Average and below average men are just society's punching bags. So if the fear of backlash from your peers is the only thing holding you back from starting to actually put in the appropriate amount of work at your job, an amount of work commensurate with your rewards, if the fear of backlash is all that's holding you back, then fear no longer. If you are wage slaving away at some miserable job, then you're probably already getting treated like shit by most of society. They couldn't possibly think less of you. I promise. You're already at the bottom. So don't fall for the shame tactics. Obviously, if you need your job to make ends meet, then I'm not saying you should quit, but it would probably be in your best interest to at least stop caring so much. Stop actually working hard every day. You should be giving your employer the same amount of effort that they reward you with. Your output should be proportional to your rewards. I remember back when I was younger and I still believed it would all work out if I just tried my hardest. I was busting my ass 39 hours a week working in fast food for minimum wage. They wouldn't let me work 40 hours because then they'd be legally required to give me certain benefits. So I was working 39 hours a week while also going to school part-time. I remember one particularly brutal semester where I was taking differential equations, fluid mechanics, and I forgot what the other class was. I think it was a CAD class, maybe. So that one wasn't that bad, but there was still a lot of homework involved. I remember one day I was up in the slop factory, flipping burgers and all that good stuff, and I brought my fluid mechanics book and my notes to work so I could study anytime it got slow. Because I was on my grind set. Okay, let me tell you, I was hustling. It wasn't efficient hustling. I was making minimum wage, but I mean, that's the best I could get at the time. So I was working the maximum amount of hours for the minimum wage, and I was taking no time off. No time off whatsoever. Any time that there was no customers in the store and I was all caught up on the dishes and everything, I would go over to the break table and I would start working on fluid mechanics problems. Okay, I was on a non-stop grind, like I'm trying to get the high score in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Because the best way to rack up points in that game was to just do one insanely long trick where you just keep landing back on the rail and grinding. But anyways, I remember one day in particular, it had been pretty busy that night. It was during mid-March, so a lot of people were on spring break. I wasn't, but the place I worked at was located right off an interstate exit. So a lot of people from up north during spring break would be driving down this interstate to get to Florida for vacation. So it would get really busy during mid to late March because so many people would be going to the beach for spring break. And the place where I worked was a perfect place to stop for some slop to fill you up while you're driving for 12 hours straight. So I remember this one day, it was super busy all day. I was working an 11-hour shift, and there was just three of us working most of the day. And most of our customers were college-aged Chads and Stacys headed to Panama City, or they're headed to Destin or whatever for spring break. I was in that same age range at the time, and I just remember taking note of how all these attractive young college girls were treating me. You know, avoiding eye contact, just stepping up and placing their orders, no pleasantries, all business. Quite a few of them were actually rude to me because it was so busy, we couldn't get all the orders out in a timely manner. So we were taking a while to get some of the orders out. And because it was so busy, I didn't really get any time to study. So I just remember busting my ass that day, just watching all these hot college girls having a good time with their Chad boyfriends on the way to the beach. Meanwhile, I'm just a total loser in their eyes. They don't even register me as a human being. I'm not even a person to them. I might as well have just been a self-order kiosk. But through all of that, I remember the whole time I was thinking, okay, they treat me like this now because I'm here in this position now. But soon, I'm going to ascend. I'm going to stay on my grind and keep my head down, keep working hard, and soon enough, I'll be the one headed to Panama City with a group of hot college girls. I'm going to make it. I'm going to fucking make it. That's what I do this for. I'm not going to be here forever. This is what I'm grinding for. I'm going to get out of this place one day, and I'm going to make it. Like, I thought I was some kind of martyr or something. Like, all the struggle was going to be worth it in the end. So I stayed on the grind like that, working at that place damn near full time while taking classes, spending all my free time studying and working on assignments. And when it was all said and done, I did get my degree, but I never got my Stacy. I never even got any woman. And the degree is worth about as much as one of those fast food burger wrappers that I used to spend all day wrapping around burgers. But I came up in a time when most people were still optimistic about the future. This was probably 2012 or 2013, I think. So I still believed that I was eventually going to be rewarded for all my effort, because at that time, the Great Recession seemed to be pretty much over with. The economy was on the rise, everything was on the up and up. I was young and full of hope, full of energy. I used all the pain and struggle that I was experiencing. I used all that as motivation. Every dirty look that I received from one of those spring break hotties, I took it in stride, and I used that to motivate me. I was really hustling. I can't stress that enough. But in the end, all that hard work really didn't amount to much. So what was it all for? I feel like I was sold a lie. The only positive thing I got out of the experience is at least my parents were proud of me for a while. But I think young men these days are not falling for it anymore. I think we're finally past the point where any of the gaslighting has any effect anymore. I saw a headline yesterday that said Gen Z men with college degrees now have the same unemployment rate as non-graduates. Let that sink in for a moment. Gen Z men with college degrees have the exact same unemployment rate as Gen Z men without college degrees. Okay, so what's the point? I know unemployment rate doesn't tell the full story, but still. I mean, if anything, the truth is actually worse, because there's a lot of young men these days that are forced to do Uber Eats and shit like that just to make ends meet. And that does include young men with college degrees. But those men don't get counted in the unemployment rate because technically they are working. So, however many people get counted as unemployed in the official unemployment rate, the real number is probably at least 2 or 3 times that much. It's a huge problem. This is not sustainable on a societal level. Just looking at mainstream culture and popular memes and everything these days, I think it's pretty clear that most young people are aware of how rigged the system is, especially young men. There's definitely a decent chunk of young ladies out there that have a doomer outlook on life, but it's not to the same degree as it is with men. Young men these days just really have literally no incentive whatsoever to try to be productive. Because, like I say, the biggest incentive for men is and always has been women. If a man knows that being productive is not going to increase his chances of attracting a good woman, then that man is not going to be productive. Of course he's not. Why would he be? The only reason young women have such a lower rate of unemployment than men these days is because women still have incentive. Women can still get a job straight out of college. And even when they fail, nobody treats them like shit for it. Dudes will still simp for chicks, even if they're literally homeless. So obviously, young women are outpacing young men these days in pretty much every measure of success. Because duh, they still have incentive. They actually get rewarded for going to college. They get rewarded just for getting out of bed in the morning. Meanwhile, young men are punished for doing what they were always told they were supposed to do. They're punished for it. Because what else would you call it when a guy works his butt off, he follows all the advice that everyone always told him growing up, he hustles, he grinds, he puts in the work, sacrifices all his free time in the prime of his youth, and then for all that, what does he get? What does he get in return? He's in the same exact place that he would have been if he just sat on his ass all that time playing Xbox. Okay, and time is a precious resource, especially when you're young. But our society tells men to sacrifice all their time because it'll be worth it in the end. I promise it'll be worth it in the end, except the thing is, it's not. It's not worth it in the end. It's not worth it at all. Not for most of us. At best, an average guy can maybe manage to get some soul-sucking corporate job where he makes pennies on the dollar compared to what past generations would have made for the same work. And at best, an average man today can maybe get with a below average woman to partner up with. A woman that's probably already been ran through 10 times over. You know, she's settling for the average guy. And rest assured, she will treat him accordingly. As in, she won't treat him at all. And this is best case scenario for an average guy these days. That's just how it is. I said this in my last video, and I'm going to say it again right now. If you are a man and you are struggling to make a living in this broken society, and you're struggling to find any women willing to date you, then do not delude yourself into thinking that getting an in-demand college degree or working hard at your corporate job is going to help you rise above. Do not fool yourself into thinking any amount of work is going to suddenly make women attracted to you. We're living in a genetic oligarchy right now, and a literal oligarchy in the classic sense. Following the rules is not the way to get ahead in this society. In my opinion, which you should take with a grain of salt, by the way, always think it through for yourself and seek out multiple perspectives, but in my opinion, the best path forward for most men these days is to try to make a living outside the system. College degrees are not worth much these days. You should spend that time instead trying to figure out how to make money without being employed by a corporation that's run by a bunch of modern day aristocrats that don't give a rat's ass whether you live or die. That's what I'm doing with YouTube. I have no trust in the traditional path. I have absolutely no faith in this society to recognize me for my hard work and reward me for it. I've been through enough by now to know that that is not happening. And as far as women are concerned, look, it doesn't hurt to try to look smacks, work out, eat right, get in good shape physically, get a good haircut and everything, try to dress well, all that stuff. I don't recommend any kind of hard maxing, getting surgeries and stuff. I don't recommend that just because of all the risks involved. But even then, I don't blame guys that go that route because it's tough out here. So go ahead and try to work on your looks, but also understand that there's a good chance none of that's going to matter anyways. If you've already tried looks maxing and you're still not getting any attention from women, then look, I know people don't like to hear this, but just forget about it. There's no loss in trying a little bit every now and then. Like, sure, if you see a woman you think you might have a chance with and you get an urge to try to go spit some game or whatever, then sure, go ahead. But don't focus on that. Don't focus on women. Because if you're already in your mid-20s and you've never had any success with women whatsoever your whole life so far, then your odds of suddenly finding that one girl that's going to be open to your advances are slim to none. You're more likely to just have a bad experience that damages your confidence even further. So, I'm not saying give up necessarily, but seriously, a lot of us are just better off coming to terms with the fact that we'll just never be chosen. And that's that. So, fuck the system. Ignore everything your boomer teachers and your guidance counselors ever told you. They had no idea what life would be like for us. There's no incentive to follow the traditional path. There's no rewards for you being a good citizen and working hard. There should be, and hopefully someday we can get back to that. I kind of doubt it, but who knows? But for now, my recommendation is just focus on yourself. Try to live a healthy lifestyle for your own sake, not because you think it's going to change your life, but just for your own sake, just for your own health. And do try to make money for yourself somehow so you don't end up homeless. Try to do it without working 9 to 5 for some evil corporation. Try to do it on your own terms. Obviously, that's not going to work out for everybody. Probably not for most people, honestly. But the 9 to 5 wage slave life isn't working for most of us either. That's for damn sure. So maybe try things a different way. If you feel like you got anything out of this or you just found this entertaining, please check out some of my other videos. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on my Patreon. No sign up required, so check that out. And let me know in the comments if any of you have any good ideas about how a man these days can make a living without subjecting himself to wage slavery. I'd be interested to hear what y'all have to say. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.